There is a tennis court in Mason, Ohio, where the gates have not even opened, and already the fences are lined 3 deep. Phones are up, necks are craned, and the player everyone is waiting for has not hit a single ball yet. Ask the people running this tournament why, and they will tell you it makes no sense. Cincinnati is not a Filipino stronghold. It is not Toronto, where 270,000 Filipino residents can fill a stadium on population alone. This city's entire Filipino community numbers somewhere between 1,100 and 2,000 people. And yet the atmosphere building around one 21-year-old from the Philippines already has tour veterans talking like they've seen a ghost. Renee Stubbs has seen a lot in this sport. Former world #1 in doubles, now a coach and one of the most respected voices in tennis media. And when she watched Alex Eala's 4th-round match in Toronto against Belinda Bencic, she said something that stopped a lot of people in their tracks. When you know you are playing Alex Eala, you are not just playing a very good player. Stubbs said on her podcast, "I would say 70% of the people who are coming to watch her match are going to be fully against you." She described the strange quiet that fell over the arena every time Bencic won a point clean crickets. She called it in a stadium she guessed was 80% behind the Filipina, standing across the net from a former world #4. That is the environment now. Not a crowd, a weather system. To understand how a tennis player builds that kind of gravitational pull without the population numbers to explain it, you have to go back a few weeks, to a tournament most casual fans would not have circled on a calendar. Washington, D.C. is not one of the sport's glamour stops, but somewhere inside that week, something shifted. Eala beat Jing Qinwen to open her campaign, then came back from 5 games to 1 down against Leylah Fernandez in a match that should have been over. She dismissed Alina Svitolina in the quarterfinal, then Naomi Osaka in the semifinal, 2 players who between them have combined for a Grand Slam title and an Olympic medal. And in the final, she found herself down a set to world #3 Jessica Pegula before rebuilding the match from the ground up to win her first Deck Tour singles title, the first by any Filipino player, man or woman, in the sport's history. That was the spark. Everything that came after started there. Then came Toronto, and the fire spread somewhere nobody expected. Eala beat Alicia Parks and then Katie McNally to reach the 4th round of the National Bank Open, and the crowd inside the 12,500-seat SoBe Stadium behaved like nothing tournament staff had seen in years. After that win over McNally, the American turned to Eala at the net and said, "Thank you for letting me be a part of this." Not a line delivered to a reporter afterward. A line delivered player to player, in the moment, because even a tour veteran could feel that something unusual was happening in that building. Eala felt it too. Days later, she posted to Instagram in Tagalog, "Saya pala dito sa Barangay Toronto. Turns out, it's fun here in Barangay Toronto." She was borrowing a word Filipinos use for neighborhood, for community, and applying it to a hockey and basketball city 3,500 miles from Manila. "Difficult to put into words, but very easy to be grateful for you all," she wrote. "Feeling the love in ways that I will probably only fully appreciate later. Thank you for allowing me to experience beyond what I know." It was not the language of a player enjoying a nice crowd. It was the language of someone describing something closer to a homecoming, staged in a country where she had never lived. Her run ended in the round of 16, where Bencic beat her in straight sets, 4-6, 0-6. It was a clean, comprehensive loss on the scoreboard, and it changed nothing about the mood in the building or about what people inside the sport were starting to say out loud. Stubbs did not talk about Eala like a hot month that would fade. "Alex Eala is going to bring so many young kids to the sport of tennis," she said, "and that is only going to make this sport grow even more." Whether or not the results kept coming, she said, more people were already talking about Eala than ever before. Which brings us to Cincinnati, a tournament that, on paper, should have been the quiet chapter. The Lindner Family Tennis Center does not sit inside a Filipino stronghold. There is no built-in army here the way there was in Toronto. And yet the lines outside the practice courts this week tell a different story. One where the crowd is not following a demographic, it is following a person. There is real tension underneath all of it, because the draw handed Eala something far from gentle. Seeded 17th, her highest seeding at this level, she earned a bye straight into the round of 64. Waiting for her there is Elena Gabriela Rus of Romania, and this is not a stranger. 2 years ago, in the third qualifying round of the U.S. Open, Rus beat Eala in 3 punishing sets, 3-6, 6-1, 6-4, denying the Filipino what would have been her first Grand Slam main draw appearance. Eala has never beaten her. It is an 0-1 head-to-head, and it is the only time they have ever shared a court. And Rus is not arriving quietly. Earlier this month, in the very same North American swing, she found herself down 4 games to love in the second set against American Peyton Stearns in the opening round of Toronto. Most players lose that match. Rus won 7 of the last 8 games to close it out in 2 sets, the kind of scoreline that tells you exactly what she does when a match looks finished and everyone else has already written the result. She fell in the very next round to Anastasia Potapova, a defeat that could have knocked the wind out of a lesser week. Instead, she arrived in Cincinnati and delivered the opposite of a hangover, dismantling Magdalenet 6-love, 6-3 to punch her ticket to this rematch, converting 6 of 8 breakpoints along the way. She is not a name from the past standing in Eala's way. She is a player playing with real conviction right now, riding 2 of the best performances of her season, and she is the one standing on the other side of the net. Beyond her, the draw does not soften. Should Eala find a way through Rus, 9th seed Amanda Anisimova is projected to wait in the 3rd round. A 2-time Grand Slam finalist, Eala has never faced on tour. Beyond that sits Linda Noskova, who has already beaten Eala twice this season, at Indian Wells and again in Berlin. This is not a kind path. It is a gauntlet, stacked from the very first match, and the crowd showing up before sunrise knows it. There is also a quieter story sitting underneath the crowd in the draw, one about a body that has barely stopped moving since the middle of summer. This is Eala's first time ever competing in Cincinnati. She was meant to play it a year ago, but a shoulder injury forced her to withdraw before she got the chance, so what should have been a routine tour stop has instead become a debut, arriving on the back of the best month of her career. Since Washington, she has barely had a week to exhale a title run that stretched to 3 sets in the final. A demanding week and a half in Toronto that pushed her to the brink of the second week, and then almost no time to recover before the flight to Ohio. She has spoken openly about how much she values simply staying healthy right now, treating it like the single most important thing on her list, more important even than the results. She is not walking into this tournament fresh. She is walking in on fumes, carrying the accumulated weight of one of the most demanding stretches of her career, and the fans lining up before sunrise seem to understand that completely. They are not showing up because the version of her on court today is at her freshest. They are showing up anyway. To understand why any of this matters, you have to understand where she came from. Eala grew up training in the Philippines, a country with almost no infrastructure for producing tour-level tennis players, long before there was ever a WTA title or a sold-out arena to speak of. There was no clear pipeline, no obvious path from a court in the Philippines to a Grand Slam quarterfinal. She found her way to the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain as a teenager, effectively rebuilding her tennis education from the ground up, far from home, in a language and a system that were not her own. That is not a polished, manufactured rise. That is the kind of beginning that, once it breaks through, tends to build the most loyal fan bases in sport, because people are not just watching a talented athlete win matches. They feel like they are watching someone climb, in real time, out of circumstances that were never supposed to produce a player like this, and they feel like, in some small way, they are part of that climb. Historically, tennis fandom of this scale has always been built on proximity. A massive crowd in a foreign city usually means a massive diaspora already living there, decades of infrastructure, local federations selling tickets specifically to that community, generations of families who simply show up because that is what their community does every single year. Eala does not have any of that in Cincinnati. She has months, a handful of results, one breakthrough title, one emotional summer, and somehow that alone has been enough to draw a crowd that, according to people who have watched both cities up close, feels remarkably similar to a city with over 200 times the built-in Filipino population. That is not a fan base she inherited. That is one she is actively building, city by city, match by match, in front of everyone watching. And that distinction matters more than it might seem at first. Community-driven support is powerful, but it is geographically limited. By definition, it only shows up where the community already lives. Crossover fandom does not work that way. It follows the person, not the population, the same way it always has for the rare handful of athletes across every sport who manage to pull in fans with no personal tie to where they come from at all. Once a player crosses that line, there is no obvious ceiling left on how far it can travel, which is why New York, only weeks away now, looms so large over everything happening in Ohio right now. The U.S. Open sits at the doorstep of one of the largest, most passionate Filipino communities anywhere in the United States, a community that dwarfs what she experienced even in Toronto. If a city with barely 2,000 Filipino residents is already producing scenes that stop tour veterans in their tracks and make broadcasters describe the noise as something closer to a home Grand Slam than a routine WTA 1000 stop, it is worth asking, honestly, what happens when she walks onto a court in front of a community measured not in the thousands, but in the hundreds of thousands, fully aware of exactly what they are watching? None of that changes what is directly in front of her today. Ruse is dangerous, in form, and unbeaten against her. A loud stadium does not win a set on its own, and no amount of noise changes a backhand or closes out a breakpoint. What it can do, and Eala has already shown this season that she knows how to use it, is buy her an extra half second of belief when a breakpoint arrives, or carry her through a tired final set when her legs are quietly asking her to stop. She will walk out against a player who has never lost to her, fresh off two of the best wins of her year. In front of a crowd with no demographic reason to be there in these numbers, showing up anyway, fully aware of exactly how hard this match could go. That is the real story sitting underneath the surprise of it all. It was never really about Cincinnati, or Toronto before it, or Washington before that. It is about a player who trained without the infrastructure this sport usually demands, who turned one relentless summer into a wave that keeps rolling forward, no matter how small the local welcome committee is supposed to be. Whatever happens against Ruse this week, remember this: the crowd is not there because the outcome feels safe. It is there because somewhere over the past few months, without a single decade of built infrastructure behind her, Alex Eala became the kind of player people simply choose to follow, city after city, whether or not anyone from home is there to greet her. And if Cincinnati really is just the preview, New York is about to find out exactly how loud this can get.